start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Good morning, everyone. We are your honor guard, consisting of volunteer members of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 2780, American Legion Post 35, Bolton, Traverse City, Our bugler today is David McIntosh. I got Mike Smith back here. He's a Vietnam combat wounded veteran from the Army. He will be presenting the flag at the very end of the service. My name is Lloyd Bartlett. I am a United States Air Force veteran. United States Army, being the oldest branch of military service, has a motto, and it goes like this: "This will defend." When the War Office was created in 1776 to manage the Continental Army, they adopted this motto. To serve under the flag of this country is a privileged duty of every able-bodied American. We have come here today to pay our respects to Specialist 4, Richard Joseph Hominga. At the age of 20, Richard left his home in Leelanau County for a flight to Detroit on March 1st, 1962. He spent the night at the Howard Johnson Hotel on Woodward Avenue. The next morning, the 2nd of March, he crossed the street and entered the Armed Forces Processing Center, where he underwent a series of tests and took the oath of enlistment in the United States Army. He proceeded to basic training and into technical training, where he became an auto mechanic. He was assigned to the 79th Ordnance Battalion at Fort Ord in California, where he maintained vehicles used to transport ordnance or munitions. They also had EOD, or explosive ordnance disposal personnel, assigned to that unit. They would dispose of munitions that were deemed unserviceable. Richard's job was to service those vehicles. Some were simple pickup trucks, while others were heavy-duty stake bed trucks. During Richard's time in the Army, he earned a number of awards. They included the Army Good Conduct Medal, the Sharpshooter's Badge for a carbine, and also the Sharpshooter for the M1 rifle, which is the same rifle we'll be using today for the rifle salute. He was honorably discharged on February 28, 1964, serving 3 years. He was released to the Army Reserve. He was a veteran of the Cold War, which ran from 1946 until 1991. This was America's longest war. What makes a person a veteran? A veteran is a person, whether an officer or enlisted, active duty, guardsman or reservist, separated or retired, who served during peacetime or at time of war, when sometime in their life they wrote a blank check, made payable to the United States of America, the amount of and up to including their life. That is what a veteran is, and that is who Richard will always be remembered as, a proud veteran. It is because men and women like Richard, who, when they served, helped develop a set of values. And these same values that hold true in soldiers of today. As I read these values, try to look back and see how Richard applied these values to his daily life. Loyalty. To bear true faith of allegiance is a manner of believing in and devoting yourself to something or someone. Duty. Fulfill your obligation. Respect. Treat others as you would like to be treated. We call that the golden rule. Selfless of service. Doing your duty without thought of recognition or gain. Integrity. Do what is right, both legally and morally. Personal courage. Face fear, danger, and adversity, both physically and morally. Honor, a manner of living these values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless of service, integrity, and personal courage in everything that you do. The red of our country's flag was made redder still by his heroism, the white made more pure by the motives which impelled him. The starry field of our nation's banner, the blue, have been glorified by his service. We believe that Richard is now in the hands of Heavenly Father, the Supreme Commander, and the Judge of all, where he rests in God's eternal peace and abides in a place where all burdens are lifted, there are no more sickness or pain. At this time, we'll have a rifle salute, followed by taps, and a presentation of our nation's flag. Honor Guard detail, post.
grateful nation, and naval veterans. In honor of Phillies, museums in this way. Symbol of our great nation. We wish you loved ones so hard work and for the service.
There are many traditions observed at military funerals, and they all have specific meanings. The rifle salute, the playing of taps. The rifle salute dates back to the Napoleonic Wars. The tradition comes from a traditional battlefield ceasefire, where both sides will clear the battlefield of its dead and wounded. The firing of 3 volleys indicate that the battlefield has been cleared, and that both sides are ready to resume the fight. Today, after the firing of 3 volleys, 3 brass casings will be placed in a folded flag as a reminder that we too carry on in Richard's behalf and to confront the challenges that confront us in this life. There is a movie that came out in 1946 at the end of World War II. The main actor was a World War II pilot. His name was Jimmy Stewart. The movie was called It's a Wonderful Life. The last scene in that movie, Jimmy Stewart was presented with a book, and in that book was inscribed the words, "No man is a failure if he has friends." So obviously, Richard had lots of friends here, so thank you so much. We'd like to thank you all for giving us a privilege and the honor to be here today. It is truly an honor. So again, thank you so much. God bless you guys, God bless Richard, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, VFW and American Legion. At this time, we will listen to the beautiful hymn, Amazing Grace. Afterwards, Gary Longcore will come and lead us our service of celebration. Thank you.
just so that you won't think we're playing musical chairs, I'll let you know what's going to happen. I'm going to talk for a few minutes regarding Richard and what I know about some of his background. And knowing Richard being the quiet, mannered person that he was, he didn't share a lot with a lot of people. So, but I do know a couple of things. And then after I finish, Nancy is going to do a letter, and I think a prayer and some other things. And then I will speak again and be reading letters that other people have written. And after that, Brian will speak. And after Brian speaks, then you get to hear me again for a couple of things. So Richard, when he was 5 years old, Richard came down with rheumatic fever. He was bedridden, semi-isolated for almost an entire year at the old farmhouse in Lake Leelanau. With just his immediate family and very few visitors, that is when he developed a love for reading and most certainly played a large part in forging his quiet, reserved demeanor. Having rheumatic fever, it takes a long time to recover when it's that severe. I mean, as long as 10 years for some people. So I'm not sure how long that was affecting Richard, but I know that he was like most of us when he went to school. He had fun, and his usual school activities, the important ones for Richard, like myself, was recess, lunch, recess, PE, and some other lessons that were thrown in. Playground squabbles, go to the principal's office, go home. When your mother and dad ask you, what did you do at school? Nothing. What did you learn? Nothing. Did you meet any friends? Wayne Plamondon was one of Richard's friends through school, both elementary and high school, although Wayne was a year, I think, behind Richard. But they had a good friendship. And one day later, after they were out of high school, they decided they were going to go smelt dipping. Now, most of you know that smelt are only about 4 to 7 inches long. And you can be sure that there were a number of beverages consumed, both before, during, and after they went smelt dipping. They got 2 5-gallon pails full of smelt. They took them back to NJ's Groceries, which was owned by Wayne's father. And the next morning, Wayne's father pointed out there were a number of 15-inch illegal whitefish in the pail. Now, Richard and Wayne had no idea how that happened. It was a mystery to them. But Richard learned 2 lessons. One, when you go fishing, pay attention to detail on the length of the fish. And the second one, if you want to have a good fishing experience, call Wayne. Richard joined the Army at age 20. He was sent to Kentucky to be trained as an auto mechanic and was then stationed in California. Richard earned, as the gentleman spoke, 2 sharpshooting badges, and in no surprise to absolutely no one, earned a Good Conduct Medal as well. These journeys sparked his love for the western United States, which was solidified in an epic camping trip with his brother David. And over the years, Richard camped, hiked, and explored dozens of national parks on his own and with Lorraine. Which brings up another point. Ellen and I first met Richard when he was working as an electrician at Sugarloaf Resort before they were married. And I noticed that when Richard was working, he also talked. He never took breaks. He was working on some wiring. I'm there talking to him. He's talking while he's working. And the other thing was he referred to my sister Katie as Lorraine. That was something that I don't think I ever used that name for her for so many years. But anyway, they got married after Richard had 43 years of bachelorhood. And he was welcomed into their family by Lorraine's children, grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren. But Richard returned that love 10 times over. Like others, we knew Richard as a quiet-mannered person who was interesting to talk with on any topic. And I always enjoyed his dry sense of humor. At the family reunions, he was content to watch everybody else have fun, and he would remain in the background and never the center of attention. I learned that he used to watch the Lions through all of the bad seasons, all of the Medicor seasons, and the 5 good ones that the Lions had. However, after multiple bad seasons, it was difficult to stay loyal to the Lions. And he sort of drifted towards the Green Bay Packers. I don't know about that one. When Richard and Lorraine retired, they found a nice location in New Mexico where they enjoyed the warmer weather, a more relaxed lifestyle out of the snow. Panning for gold up in the mountains became a frequent excursion. The gentle breeze and the cool mountain water flowing to the low levels as Richard and Lorraine enjoyed the peacefulness of it all. However, over the years, with Richard's health failing, each year became more challenging and eventually was unable to travel. But through it all, he was still Richard, and his dry sense of humor and positive self. And I will hear from Nancy.
I have a lot written here, but it's not all for you guys. This is from Jessica Munt, my daughter. She said, Ella Wheeler Wilcox is quoted as saying, I think of death as some delightful journey that I shall take when all my tasks are complete. Well, Ella, no offense, but this has been the farthest thing from delightful. I think so much of that is because Parkinson's took away my grandfather's power to decide when his tasks were completed. It decided for him. And even though we knew this was coming, watching it happen was still far more painful than any of us could have prepared for. While Parkinson's may have taken his body from us, it can never touch our memories of him. One of the earliest memories I have is holding his hand as we ran through the sprinklers and picking out the best sticks in his yard outside the Suttons Bay home so we could have our famous stick fights. He taught me young that pop is ucky and sneaked me hundreds of sugar cubes over the years. He played endless rounds of Go Fish with me when he just wanted to play his cards in peace and quiet. Most importantly, he showed me how to love my partner in life. My grandfather treasured my grandmother. He respected her, he valued her opinions, and he loved her unconditionally. May we all find and hold on to a love like the two of them share eternally. I wish I could end this by describing everything he meant and how much we all loved him, but it's not possible to sum up in words what my grandpa meant to me. The English language is far too limited to accurately honor the memory of a man who lived and loved to the capacity that he did. May we all carry his memory with us as a bright, warm light in this world that now feels so harsh and empty without him. Jessica Munt. And then I wrote a few things to say. I'm going to try to get through them. Let's see, not this one. Not this one. Oh, here we go. Okay, it does feel harsh and empty without Richard. This is hard. It's hard watching Mom, knowing that we can't really do anything to make it better, or fix it or bring him back. Thinking of Richard not being here makes me so incredibly sad. But remembering Richard for what he was, for who he was, and how he influenced and changed me brings me and gives me love and appreciation for him. Most of you probably are unaware, Richard and I were about as far apart as two people could be politically and religiously, which made for some very interesting discussions around the house. But through these talks and discussions, Richard taught me to listen. He taught me to have a reason to answer for what I believe, not have an emotional opinion. He helped me to learn to understand what other people are saying, to listen to them, learn to listen and understand. Sometimes after these discussions, I wasn't sure where I stood with Richard. But when things got quiet, he would tell me he loved me. Well, actually, he didn't say that. He never said, "I love you." But he did say, "Nancy, you're not all bad." He also said, "I don't care what they say, you're all right in my book." So I know that he loved me. Saying that meant the world to me because I know he loved me, and I loved him. And I'll remember him in love and thankfulness and hope, because there is hope in this world, hope in Jesus. Hebrews 15:13 says, "Now the God of hope fill you with joy and peace in believing, that ye may abound in hope through the power of the Holy Ghost." I know when we parted, Richard often would say, especially to my siblings, "Keep it between the ditches." That wasn't his saying for me. When I told him I was leaving and I'd see him again, he'd always tell me, "Thanks for the warning." So here's my warning, Richard. I hope to see you again. And I just want to let Richard know that I'm doing my best to keep my promise. The last few times I talked to him, he was really insistent that we needed to take care of Mom. So we're doing our best, the best that we can. We always will. And I love you, Richard. Mom wanted me to read this. It was written by Dale Dillon. Some of you may have heard it before, but it's still appropriate. Death of a loved one. There's no good time for death to come. It shows up uninvited. Yet in the pain, the sense of loss, we become united. We've all lost someone close to us and hurt with things unsaid, but I feel all is known to them, even though they're dead. We find death hard to understand, forever, eternity in part. But for your loved one will always be with you when buried in your heart.
Just a comment about Dale Dillon. He was our oldest cousin. He had 9 children, 27 grandchildren, 28 great-grandchildren, and I think 3 great-great-great-grandchildren. And we're waiting for his memorial. This is from Becca. When I was little, probably about 6, I found out that Grandpa Rich liked to birdwatch. That summer, I found a book about birds. It was a large encyclopedia type of book, something that I'm sure Grandpa Rich neither needed or wanted, but I was so excited to give it to him, and he accepted the book with so much kindness and offered me the opportunity to sit and birdwatch with him. I sat there for hours with Grandpa Rich waiting for the birds to come. And by hours, I mean minutes. I had a hard time sitting quietly and asked a lot of questions, which, if you weren't aware, isn't conducive to bird watching. And from Lydia, I was little, maybe around 5 or 6, and getting ready for Easter Sunday. We were just about to leave the house, so I jumped up on Grandpa's lap to give him a hug and say goodbye. I was a very enthusiastic child. Apparently, when I jumped up, my fingernail scratched his arm and drew blood. Leaving a mark, he wasn't super happy about that, especially when it ended up scarring his arm. Especially these past few visits, every time I saw him, he pointed out his scar and teased me, retelling me the story. I guess you could say I scarred him for life. From Karina, I think it's normal to have regrets when a loved one passes. To wish you had done more with the time you shared or said things you felt but didn't know how to bring up. One of my biggest regrets regarding Grandpa's death is not getting to know him better as a person. When I try to think about what I know about him and his life, it feels like very little. I never found out what kind of music he enjoyed, or if he had a favorite color, or what his time in the military was like, or how he came to be a pipe fitter. A lot, arguably most of the specific things I know about him, I learned secondhand. I think because I was intimidated by his silence, or took it personally, and assumed he thought I was dumb or something. This is probably because he was one of the few people who didn't seem to mind bluntly correcting me when I was wrong. And I was so used to feeling like the smart kid who is always the most right about everything. Upon reflection after his death, I realized I just never tried to get to know him. Anyway, my point is that I think it warrants reminding just how important it is to talk to people close to you, even if it's uncomfortable, because there's always something to learn about them or from them, and we never have as much time as we'd like. And now Brian will read his.
Thank you. When I think about Grandpa Rich, I remember how he used to say my name when I walked in the door. I always felt welcome, and I always felt like he was happy to see me. He had a steady, grounding presence. He was unshakable and everlasting, and in any room, his presence stood like a mountain. He taught me to be patient with cats, and that you learn better with your mouth shut. Everything about him was golden. His truck, his cough drops, the sun setting on his backyard at supper time, his silence. He always listened. Through his books, his magazines, and his conversations with everyone, Grandpa seemed to know more about the world as it is than any other person I've ever met. He spoke with crystal clarity, and he always meant what he said. I am certain he is at peace in death just as much as he was in life, and I hope we all leave here today knowing we carry his peaceful presence with us in our own hearts. Thank you.
This is a letter from Amy. Richard came into my life when I was 16. I honestly don't recall the meeting. He was just there. And then they were together all the time. With the obliviousness of a teenager, I saw that my mother was happy and he was a nice guy. And that was really all that mattered. I didn't realize it at the time how much courage or patience it would take for a man to marry a woman who had 5 grown and almost grown children and a couple of grandkids already. Now, I both respect and wonder at how crazy he must have been about my mom to take that leap. When they built their house in Traverse City, the only thing Richard insisted on was an area in the house he could close the door and disappear to when he needed a break. Well, that and really good interior insulation. A few years ago, my husband Tony and I went to New Mexico to visit Mom and Rich. At their winter place, I was fascinated by the very different topography and was enthusiastically collecting a bunch of beautiful stones. Asking Rich what each of them were, he patiently identified them for me for a good while, until I showed a particularly pretty rock and asked what it was. Richard said, "That's a leverite." I asked, "What's a leverite?" And he replied, "You just leave her right there." That was Richard in a nutshell. Patient, smart, funny, with the driest sense of humor imaginable, and very, very kind. He was always learning and flexing his brain, reading magazines and books, watching the news, playing solitaire and Sudoku. I found a quote from one of his beloved science fiction books that really sums up Richard to me. The following is from the author Arthur C. Clarke in his book Rama II. I quote, "In my life, I have found two things of priceless worth: learning and loving, nothing else. Not fame, not power, not achievement for its own sake can possibly have the same lasting value. For when your life is over, if you can say, 'I have learned and I have loved,' you will also be able to say, 'I have been happy.'" And the last reading from me. All of life's journeys have an ending. When two people have been together for many years, it is all about love. When you know your time is near and you are with the one you love so dear, you simply say, "Don't call the doctor." I want to fall asleep peacefully with your hand in mine. She put her hand in his and tells him about the past. Their first date, his proposal, their wedding, about all the birthdays, proms, graduations, weddings of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the reunions planned over the years, the vacations that brought much joy. They smiled as they did not regret anything. They were grateful for everything. He says, "I love you." She responds the same. He signs and begins to fall asleep. With her hand in his, she squeezes his hand and whispers, "Goodbye." That is the way a journey should end, and it did. Thank you. And that will conclude this part of it.
Well, thank you, everyone. I know this is such a hard day, but it's also a good day because we're celebrating a great man. This does conclude our services inside, but I invite you all outside to our garden tent where we have a beautiful luncheon prepared and we can share some more memories and enjoy the beautiful video tribute as well. Thank you and go in peace.